cannot live without him. I cannot live. I can't do this alone. Lord, save him. Please save him. Don't let me go through this where I almost lost him as a friend. And we shared the miraculous stories about how you healed his body, you saved him from this accident, and don't let this be the result. And so I prayed, and I remember I was praying, and all of a sudden I feel like I felt almost like it's done. It's done. This is it. And I remember feeling, this is it. And so I stopped praying, and they told me, I remember at that moment hollering back. I remember at some point, maybe before this, or I don't even know when, but I remember hollering back, can we go? Can we go? Can we get to the hospital? Because all this while, we're sitting in front of my house. We're sitting right in front of my house, and I begged them, I said, can we please go? And they said, we have everything we need in this truck. We can't afford to move. Said they had fire chief, supervisor, somebody supervising. They had all these people back there that were working to save his life. And I remember it was probably, I didn't realize at this time, but according to the time, it had been 45 minutes or 40 minutes since the time that they started doing chest compressions and life-saving measures. I remember the firefighter came to me, and I was sitting on the passenger side in the ambulance. He came up to me. He says, ma'am, he said, do you have anybody that can be here with you? And I remember at that moment, my pastor walked up, and I said, yeah, my pastor's right here. And he was like, can I talk to you? Do you mind me talking to you in front of him? I was like, yeah, sure, of course. And he says, ma'am, he says, we've done all we can do. We've done all we can do. And he says, we've tried. His heart is not responding to the medicine. We've done chest compressions, and we've been working for the last 45 minutes. And he said, and they're already telling us to call it. He said, but we'll keep going if you want. And I remember I said, well, I remember at this time, I don't even know what I said. And I remember my pastor saying, Bishop Younger saying, he said, all right, you guys tried what you wanted to, what you had to do. You did everything within your means. He said, can I go in? Can I try? And at this time, I don't even remember anything else. All I remember is Mother Younger, and she's one of the mothers of our church. She came, and I felt like she dragged me, or either I poured out of the front seat of the car, and she just called me, and she just held me and hugged me. And I remember the groan. I'll never forget the groan, the agony, the sound that came out of me. It was as if I was dying. And as the scripture says, that when a husband and wife come together, they're no longer two, but they're one. So I was dying as well. And I remember having this moment where I was crying, and I remember I got a call from some friends that were right down the street, and they was like, Brenda, what's going on? What's happening? And I remember telling them, I was like, what's going on? I was like, he's gone. It was like, he's gone. And I couldn't believe it myself. I couldn't believe it. And I remember instantly I felt like my mind went into this place of, I'm going to say, of numbness. I mean, I feel like almost just to kind of, I know more now that it was a coping mechanism to allow myself to understand and process what was taking place. And so it's almost like I blocked what happened, and not just what happened, but everything out of my head. I remember they asked me if I wanted to see him. And so I went back, went into the ambulance and in the back where he was, and just looked at him, looked at his body, and then they told me they were going to have to bring him back into the house. What? Because at that time, I guess whatever laws, whatever stated that if a person died at home and they were of a certain age, that it became a coroner's case. And so there had to be a police investigation to determine cause of death because he had no known illness. And so, first thing I'm thinking, you're not going to take them back up to our bedroom. Our kids are there. Our kids are home. And so what they did, I told them, I said, well, you can put them in our guest room. And so because of the holidays and such that were coming around, we had just bought this bedroom suit. Just bought it. And so they said, they agreed that they can put him in there. And I remember going into that room after his lifeless body was laying on the bed. He still had the tubing in his mouth. And I was in the room, closed door, with my pastor and his mom. I remember I just sat there. And I sat by his head and I put my hand on his head. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I remember the first thing that came to my mind was a song by India.Arie. And I have no idea. First of all, her album was the song. Well, that album I think was Voyage. The Voyage, I think. It had our song when we got into a relationship, which was Beautiful Surprise. And so later on that same album was a song called Good Man. Whew. And the first thing I thought was that song. And something about when I first heard that song as a college student, I was like, man, first of all, part of me was like, this song meant something, but in a million years, I would have never thought that I would have to be telling my kids that their daddy was a good man. And I didn't know when to tell them. I didn't know how to tell them. How do you tell them that they're a 5 and a 6-year-old? That the same man that kisses you goodnight, the same man that gets you up every morning, helps you get dressed, that hugs and loves you, one who you admire and look up to, he's not here anymore. He's not here anymore. So by this time, it's late at night. Early morning, November 30th. And his time of death being November 30th, 2016. 1:30 in the morning. It's on a Wednesday, and the kids have to go to school tomorrow, and I have to go to work. So I decided, let me get a little bit of sleep. I told everybody they can go home. At the time, my house was filled with all the deacons and family, friends, and I told them they can all go home. And so my little sister Morgan, who had been a dear friend and had been with us for years, decided she was going to stay with me. And I remember I slept on the couch because at this time I have nowhere to sleep. I can't sleep in my bed. I can't sleep in my guest room. So I slept on the couch. I think I actually slept on the air mattress first, but then the air mattress deflated. And I woke up on the floor, and then some Morgan switched with me. I slept on the couch, and she slept on the faulty air mattress. So I made up my mind. The next morning, I said, I can't tell them yet. I have to be able to get myself together. I have to figure this out. I'm going to send them to school. And if they ask me where their dad is, I'll be honest, I hadn't even thought that far. So as soon as I lay down to close my eyes, the alarm goes off. And I remember calling into work. I called my supervisor and I said, I can't come into work today. And I said, I don't know when I'll be back. And I said, my husband died this morning. My husband died this morning. And I remember hanging up. And I remember going upstairs and getting them dressed for school, and which was unusual. As I said, that their dad enjoyed getting them up every morning. They enjoyed having him. And so that's the first thing they asked, where's Daddy? Where's Daddy? Where's Daddy? And I just froze. I stared. I remember my son, he's at work. He's at work, right? And I said, yeah, he's at work. He's at work. And I remember the ride. We drove them to school. And this time his mother's come in town. She drove up from Fayetteville. We're living in Lynchburg. She drove 3 to 4 hours from Fayetteville. Oh my goodness. And so two of my friends, Morgan and Nicole, ride with me or drive me to get the kids to school. And I remember their car ride was just silent. And inside, I knew that they knew something was up. Amory, the way she was looking, she was just, she's a smart kid. She's very observant. I always called her, even since she was a small child, very, very small child, very observant, nosy. And we sent them to school. I walked in. I told the teachers, told the principal and the counselor. I said, listen, this is what's happened. I don't know what we'll do from here, but I'm sending them to school. They don't know. And just love on my kids while they're here. At the time, Kai was in kindergarten and Avery was in first grade. Kai had already experienced a lot of trauma through his experience at school, and we had overcome so much. We'd overcome so much. And just the fact there was something else. So, you understand too, the line of work I'm in early child development, infant mental health, and I deal with helping parents to work with children that have experienced trauma, and so now here I am, my kids are going through this. So they get home from school. I call Kai and Avery in the room and I tell them, okay, I said, your dad loves you so much. He loves you so much. And Kai said, he's a good dad. He's a really good dad. I love him so much. I'm like, he is a good dad. And Avery, she's looking, yeah. And I said, he's so good that God wanted to use him in heaven. He said, wow, you're doing such a good job here. I want to use you in heaven. And I remember Kai said, wow, God wants to use him in heaven? Man. And he was like, wow, like Daddy has achieved the ultimate reward. Whew. My goodness. He said, wow, that is amazing. He said, well, you just have to find yourself another husband. What? What? You have to find yourself another husband. Wow. Huh? And Amory immediately, she knew. She says, is Daddy dead? And I said, yes, Daddy's dead. And I said, he won't be coming back. And I said, and Amory just cried and cried and cried. Oh gosh, she cried. She cried and she cried. And Kai, he was, you just have to find another husband. I mean, there are two different reactions. And Kai was, very, very much adamant about, I have to now walk in Dad's shoes. Dad was a deacon. The kingdom